Most dating advice is built around the most obvious battlefield: younger women, peak social activity, peak novelty, peak options. It's all how to stand out, how to get her attention, how to keep the spark alive. And it usually assumes you're dealing with someone still experimenting with identity, lifestyle, and standards. But there's a whole demographic that gets talked about in cliches, or not at all: women over 40. And if you're a man dating in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, or beyond, you already know the truth. The game is not the same game. The stakes are different. The risks are different. The motivations are different. The meaning of connection is different. By 40, a woman has lived enough life to have a personal history that isn't theoretical. She's not imagining what heartbreak is. She's not guessing what betrayal feels like. She's not building a personality out of hopes and potential. She's carrying proof. She's carrying patterns. She's carrying memories she didn't ask for and lessons she paid for. That doesn't make her better or worse than a younger woman. It makes her different. It makes her more defined. And it often makes her more complex because she's trying to want love while also trying to protect herself from what love cost her before. So today, we're going to talk about what women after 40 are actually chasing. Not what they say they want on a profile. Not what sounds polite in conversation. What tends to drive real decisions when the lights are off and the truth is louder than the script. This isn't about judging women. It's about pattern recognition. Because if you want real clarity in dating, you have to understand what people are hungry for. Desire is not random. Attachment is not random. Behavior is not random. Most of it is a logical response to needs that aren't being named out loud. And the first thing you need to understand is that attraction changes with age. Not just in what someone finds attractive, but in what attraction is trying to accomplish psychologically. In her 20s, attraction is often driven by chemistry, image, excitement, social feedback, future fantasy. It's about potential. It's about who could we become. Even when a woman says she wants stability at 25, her nervous system is often still drawn to intensity, to novelty, to the emotional highs that feel like life. By 40, attraction is often less about building a future from scratch and more about correcting a present that doesn't feel right. It becomes less about chasing butterflies and more about managing pain, loneliness, regret, exhaustion, and time. That doesn't mean romance disappears. It means romance competes with reality. At 25, you can fall in love and improvise the rest. At 45, many people don't have the luxury of improvising. There are kids, mortgages, careers, health issues, reputations, legal histories, and a fatigue that comes from being disappointed a few too many times. So the question stops being, what does she like? And becomes, what is she trying to solve? Because for a lot of women over 40, dating isn't just a search for a partner. It's a search for relief. It's a search for repair. It's a search for identity. It's a search to feel young again, safe again, seen again, chosen again, free again, or powerful again. That's why two women can be the same age and behave like they come from different worlds. One might be calm, grounded, and ready for something healthy. Another might feel unpredictable, restless, and emotionally hard to reach. Same age, different hunger. What I'm going to lay out are common patterns that show up in women over 40. Not because women are robots, but because humans repeat coping strategies when they work. If a certain strategy protected her from pain, she'll use it again. If a certain type of man gave her a feeling she's addicted to, she'll chase it again. If a certain belief helped her make sense of disappointment, she'll defend it. You're not going to use this to play anyone. You're going to use it to see clearly, choose wisely, and stop wasting your time trying to build with someone who's actually chasing something else. Pattern 1 is the woman chasing validation. In her younger years, a lot of women had a steady stream of external proof that they mattered. Attention was easier. Compliments were routine. Attraction was often automatic. Whether she liked it or not, she lived in a world that reflected desire back to her. As time passes, that reflection changes. The attention becomes less predictable. The validation becomes less automatic. The competition becomes more obvious. And if her identity was built heavily on being desired, the shift can feel like a quiet crisis. When a woman's confidence is built mostly on external feedback, aging doesn't just change her appearance. It changes her position in the social marketplace. And if she never built deeper internal validation, she will go hunting for evidence that she's still that woman. Here's the important part. She isn't always chasing a relationship. She may be chasing confirmation. She wants to feel chosen. She wants to feel special. She wants to feel like time didn't reduce her value. And you can see this in what lands and what doesn't. Basic compliments like, "you're beautiful," can bounce off because she's comparing herself to her younger self, not to you. But compliments about her mind, her taste, her presence, her sophistication, her self-respect, her character, those can hit deeper because they imply value that doesn't depend on youth. The validation seeker often becomes highly sensitive to comparison. She'll pay attention to which women get attention and how. She'll notice younger women and feel a mix of admiration and threat. She might joke about aging, but the joke has teeth. She may reference her past more than her future because her past is where her value felt undeniable. And if you become the man who consistently feeds her that proof, she can attach quickly, not because she's evil, because reassurance feels like oxygen when you've been living on fumes. What a man needs to understand is the risk. If you are primarily a mirror for her self-worth, you're not being chosen for you. You're being chosen for the feeling you provide. And feelings are unstable if the underlying insecurity stays untouched. The minute your attention becomes routine, or the minute she finds a stronger mirror, the attachment can wobble. The second pattern is the woman who's carrying real emotional damage, and she's dating from a defensive nervous system. This is the woman who has been betrayed, abandoned, humiliated, or burned repeatedly. Maybe she was married and got blindsided. Maybe she invested years into someone who wasted her time. Maybe she lived through a cycle of promises that turned into excuses. Maybe she's had enough disappointment that she no longer trusts her own judgment. This woman often isn't chasing excitement. She's chasing safety. She's chasing calm. She's chasing someone who makes her nervous system stop ringing alarms. She'll be drawn to consistency. She'll be drawn to predictability. She'll be drawn to a man who feels emotionally steady, not the most thrilling man, the safest man, the man who doesn't trigger her fear. But here's the trap. When someone has been living in stress for years, relief can feel like love. The first time she feels peaceful with you, she might interpret that as, "This is the deepest connection I've ever had." The absence of anxiety gets mistaken for passion. The safety feels intoxicating because she forgot what stable felt like. And that can produce fast bonding, fast commitment, big emotional investment early. Men often confuse this intensity with compatibility. It feels flattering. It feels like, finally, a woman who knows what she wants. But sometimes what she wants is shelter. And shelter is not the same as desire. She may genuinely believe she loves you. She might mean it. But her attachment is driven by protection needs, not romantic alignment. And when her nervous system finally calms, when the wound stops bleeding, her urgency can fade. She may wake up one day and realize that she attached to what you represented, not who you are. You can often spot this pattern by speed. If she's moving too fast, pushing commitment before real knowledge, collapsing boundaries because it feels right, you should slow things down, not accelerate. Healthy love can handle pace. Trauma, bonding cannot. The third pattern is the woman who lives in waiting mode. This is the woman who spent a long time believing her real life hasn't started yet, that something bigger is coming, that she's in a temporary chapter until the right man, the right move, the right opportunity arrives and transforms everything. She might date, but she often dates with one foot out the door. Partners become placeholders. Nice for now, but not the real thing. She stays emotionally loyal to the idea that something better is around the corner. What she's chasing is transformation, not partnership. She wants a dramatic shift that makes her feel alive. She's drawn to novelty, spontaneity, and disruption. Not necessarily because she's adventurous, but because novelty keeps hope alive. It keeps the fantasy alive. The problem is that fantasy is more attractive than reality. Real relationships have routines, compromises, and ordinary days. The imagined relationship doesn't. So she's often easy to attract at first. You are new, you are different, you represent possibility. You might be the one she's been waiting for. But once you become familiar, once you become real, once you are part of her actual life rather than her potential life, the magic can weaken. Then she starts scanning again. Not always because she's immoral, but because her identity is tied to searching. The chase is her drug. The fantasy chaser is rarely fully present. Part of her is always comparing, always imagining, always waiting. She's loyal to a story, which makes her disloyal to the moment. The fourth pattern is the woman who never built true adult self-sufficiency. This isn't about being broke or rich. It's about competence. It's about life management. Some women moved from father to boyfriend to husband, with most of the heavy decisions handled around them. Money, logistics, planning, problem solving. Someone else did it. Not because she's stupid, but because she never had developed the skill. Then something happens. Divorce, widowhood, a breakup, a financial shock, and she's facing the world without the structure she relied on. That can produce real fear. What she's chasing now is a stabilizer, a man who can take over the parts of life she doesn't feel equipped to manage, a partner who can restore structure. But here's where it gets complicated. Dependency often creates resentment. She wants to be taken care of, but she also resents feeling dependent. She wants control, but she also wants relief from responsibility. She may rebel against a stable man because stability reminds her of the constraints she associates with being handled. So she can be drawn to drama and intensity because intensity feels like freedom. She might sabotage calm relationships because calm forces her to face real life. And she might chase exciting men who destabilize her because chaos feels like passion. You'll see oscillation, periods of responsibility followed by impulsive moves, a pattern of good choices followed by self-sabotage. Stable men become boring. Unstable men become chemistry. For a man, the warning sign is when you feel like you're being hired, when her interest spikes mainly around your ability to solve, provide, rescue, manage. If you feel like a life support system, you're not being loved. You're being used as infrastructure. That can become a brutal relationship because you carry the weight and get blamed for the pressure. The fifth pattern is the high achieving, high control woman who can't easily switch off leadership. This woman built competence over decades. She's decisive. She's assertive. She's used to results. She managed teams, raised kids, survived hard seasons, built a career, held a household together. She knows how to perform under pressure. And that strength is real, but it can create a problem. Control becomes a reflex. She brings executive energy into intimacy. She manages the relationship like a project. She corrects, directs, optimizes. She struggles to yield because yielding feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability can feel unsafe when you've spent years protecting yourself. What she's chasing is complicated. On one level, she wants a man she respects, someone strong enough that she doesn't feel like she's raising him. On another level, she feels anxious when she's not in control. She wants to relax, but she doesn't know how. So she oscillates. She's attracted to strong men, then competes with them. She wants leadership, then rebels against leadership. She tests constantly, not always as manipulation, but as verification. She needs proof that you can handle her intensity before she can risk softness. Underneath her competence is often a woman carrying tension she doesn't know how to release. Her armor is well built, and beneath the armor is a desire to be met by a man solid enough that she can finally put the armor down without fear. If you date this woman, you need clarity. You cannot be intimidated by her strength, and you cannot be seduced into constant power struggle. The only way this works is calm leadership and emotional steadiness. When you react, she escalates. When you stay grounded, she slowly trusts. And the key is this: she doesn't need a man who dominates her. She needs a man who can hold frame without aggression. A man whose strength isn't loud, it's consistent. The sixth pattern is the woman who experienced status or lifestyle decline and is trying to get back to what felt like her world. This is not always shallow materialism. It's identity. She once lived at a certain level: social circle, neighborhood, travel, comfort, access, maybe through marriage, maybe through family, maybe through her own success. Then the world shrank. Divorce, financial change, loss, a career shift. Now she lives in a reality that feels like a downgrade, and that can produce quiet grief, even if she never admits it. What she's chasing is restoration, not just money, but belonging. The feeling that she's back in the world where she felt recognized. This makes her highly sensitive to status markers. Visible success triggers hope. Access triggers attraction. She can attach quickly to men who represent a return. The danger for a man is role-based love. If she's drawn to what you represent, the relationship becomes fragile if your status changes, or if someone shows up who represents more. The relationship is built on external identity, not internal connection. Again, this doesn't mean she's evil. It means she's trying to restabilize her sense of self, but you should know what you're signing up for. The seventh pattern is the woman in perpetual motion, the chronic self-reinvention type. She's always doing something: retreats, workshops, therapy, new philosophies, new diets, new identities, new communities, new labels. Her calendar is full, but her center is missing. From the outside, it looks like growth. Sometimes it is, but often it functions as avoidance. Movement becomes a way to avoid stillness, because stillness forces you to feel what you've been outrunning. In relationships, she can be intense and exciting at first. She wants deep conversations. She wants transformation. She wants you to evolve with her. But long-term stability can feel like a cage to her because stability feels like stagnation. She confuses chaos with meaning. She confuses intensity with truth. So she cycles: new love, new disappointment, new self-reinvention, repeat. Her opinions shift quickly, but she holds each phase with total conviction. It's not curiosity, it's identity hunting. And if you don't match her current phase, she experiences you as blocking her growth. The chronic searcher is hard to build with because her destination keeps moving. You can't partner with someone who doesn't know where they're going because every month the relationship is evaluated against a new belief system. The eighth pattern is the woman who hardened into proud independence and can't easily receive. This woman has been disappointed enough times that she stopped expecting anything. She built a life that doesn't require a partner. She takes pride in not needing anyone, and that pride becomes her identity. She's often competent, tough, and productive. She handles life. She pays her bills. She gets things done. She may even look like the safest bet because she seems stable. But here's the catch: the armor that protects her also blocks intimacy. Receiving care feels dangerous. Depending on someone feels like surrendering power. So she finds a workaround. She dates in a way that keeps her in the giver role. She's often drawn to men she can help, guide, fix, or mentor. Men who are younger, less established, or struggling. That dynamic allows her to be in a relationship while staying in control. Caretaking becomes a substitute for vulnerability. She can feel connected without being seen. If you're a capable, stable man, you may find she doesn't know how to relate to you. Your strength removes her role, and without the role, she has to risk being soft, and soft is exactly what her history taught her not to be. Now, those are patterns. They're not moral verdicts, they're survival strategies. And most people don't choose their strategies consciously. They develop them because they worked. What unites these patterns is one underlying theme: lack. The validation seeker lacks secure self-worth. The wounded woman lacks safety. The fantasy chaser lacks grounded reality and purpose. The dependent lacks competence and self-trust. The controller lacks a permission to be vulnerable. The status restorer lacks identity stability. The motion addict lacks inner stillness. The armored caretaker lacks the ability to receive. Everyone has a lack somewhere. The reason this matters more after 40 is because by that age, the lack has had time to harden into a lifestyle. A small insecurity at 25 can become a defining structure at 45. A coping habit at 30 can become an identity at 50. And when you understand what someone lacks, you understand what they chase. When you understand what they chase, you understand what they'll trade for it: time, loyalty, patience, honesty, stability. Here's an uncomfortable truth that men need to hold without becoming bitter. A lot of what people call love is actually need wearing romance clothing. Not all love. Real love exists at every age. There are emotionally healthy women over 40 who are grounded, self-aware, and capable of genuine partnership. Some of the best relationships happen later because the illusions are gone and the priorities are clearer. But many attachments that look like love are really a need-finding supply. If you provide what she lacks, she may attach fast. She may call it destiny. She may call it connection. She may call it finally. And you might believe it too, because attention feels good and intensity is seductive, but need-based attachment is unstable. It lasts as long as the need is urgent. When her nervous system calms, the wounded woman may realize she doesn't actually want you. She wanted safety. When the fantasy chaser gets bored, she starts searching again. When the validation seeker finds a new mirror, she shifts. When the status restorer realizes you can't restore her past, resentment appears. That doesn't mean never date women over 40. It means stop being naive about what intensity means. Intensity can be desire, or it can be desperation. Your job is to know the difference. So, how does a man use this knowledge without becoming cynical? You use it the way a smart man uses any truth: to choose better, to move slower, to set boundaries earlier, and to build on reality instead of fantasy. Here are the practical takeaways if you're a man dating women over 40. First, identify what she's truly hungry for, not her words, her patterns. Listen to what she complains about repeatedly. Notice what she's sensitive about. Notice what triggers her defensiveness. Watch what she idealizes. Watch what she fears. Most people don't name their deepest needs directly. They circle them. They hint. They reveal them through repetition. Second, don't confuse being needed with being valued. A woman can need you intensely and still not respect you. In fact, sometimes need creates contempt because it reminds her of dependency, weakness, or lack. Value is different. Value looks like appreciation without desperation. It looks like admiration that isn't anxious. It looks like consistency that isn't control. Third, pace the connection. A healthy woman can handle pace. A woman attaching out of need will try to rush you. She'll want labels quickly. She'll want certainty quickly. She'll want promises quickly. Don't punish her for it. Don't shame her, but don't confuse urgency with love. Slow is safe. Slow reveals truth. Fourth, look for self-awareness. The healthiest women over 40 aren't perfect. They're aware. They know their patterns. They've owned their history. They can talk about their mistakes without turning it into a courtroom where every ex was the villain and they were always innocent. Self-awareness is the line between someone living a pattern and someone working through it. Fifth, protect your role. If you become her therapist, her rescuer, her manager, her financial stabilizer, her emotional sponge, or her identity repair kit, you are not building a relationship. You are building a job. A good relationship includes support, of course, but support is mutual, and it doesn't erase boundaries. If your presence is mainly providing relief, the relationship will feel like love at first and like burden later. Sixth, define what you want before you walk into her world. A lot of men date reactively. They don't know what they want until they're already attached. Then they try to negotiate their standards from inside the situation, which is where men get trapped. Know what you want: peace, loyalty, partnership, feminine warmth, mutual respect, shared values, consistent intimacy, emotional maturity, stable conflict resolution. Then date like a man who already has a life, not like a man trying to be selected into one. Now let's put the whole thing in one sentence so you don't lose the point. Women over 40 aren't a mystery. They're often chasing whatever life taught them they might never get again. Sometimes that chase is healthy: companionship, real partnership, shared purpose, emotional safety, mature love. Sometimes that chase is compensatory: validation, restoration, rescue, fantasy, control, distraction. Your job as a man is not to judge her for it. Your job is to see it clearly and decide whether you can and want to meet her in that place. Because if you misunderstand what she's chasing, you'll keep thinking you're building a relationship when you're actually filling a void. And voids don't get filled by romance alone. They get filled by self-work. That's why clarity is everything. Clarity is what keeps you from becoming another chapter in someone else's coping pattern. So if you're a man dating women over 40, move with respect, but move with your eyes open. Pay attention to need versus want. Pay attention to pace. Pay attention to self-awareness. Pay attention to whether her interest is in you or in what you represent. And remember, the strongest position a man can hold in dating isn't being desirable. It's being discerning. Because when you're discerning, you stop chasing roles. You stop chasing intensity. You stop chasing approval. You start choosing. And choosing is where real power is. This isn't about manipulation. It's not about figuring women out like they're problems to solve. It's about understanding human behavior so you can build something real with someone who's actually capable of it. When you lead with clarity, you stop wasting time on confusion. When you lead with standards, you stop being pulled into dynamics that drain you. And when you lead with understanding, you can meet the right woman with maturity instead of suspicion. That's the goal. Not cynicism, not bitterness, understanding. Because understanding is the foundation of every connection that actually lasts.